What's up, nerds? It's your boy, 7:30 in the morning. 7:30? Wow, it's early. Or my clock is off. It feels like 8 or 9. Probably because it's just so bright and sunny outside. It's a lovely spring day here at Site B. It is the 11th day of May 2023. Still have a bit of an ear infection because weather. And this was just announced late yesterday. Rebellion Games has acquired Flying Buffalo and the complete Tunnels and Trolls line. So if you're not familiar with Tunnels and Trolls, it is believed to be quite possibly the second oldest, or maybe even the oldest, tabletop role-playing game that was ever produced. I mean, there's a lot of iffiness and wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey around that, that 74 to 76 timeline of who actually published their first, whether it was, Empire of the Petal Throne, Dungeons and Dragons, Tunnels and Trolls, Temecule, Blackmore. Everybody sort of has their own take on who was first. But Tunnels and Trolls was a role-playing game that came out about the same time as D&D, that same 3-year gap. It was one of the first role-playing games that ever introduced the idea of solo role-playing, because while solo role-playing is something you can't walk 5 feet without bumping into, back then, pretty much the only idea of solo role-playing was the, choose-your-own-adventure kids' books, or this. And they had very much focused on that being one of their main things, is you could run Tunnels and Trolls with just yourself. And a lot of the early adventures were designed to write that. They're most famous for things like their name, and they had some really, well-known dungeons that everybody was familiar with back then. But probably the biggest thing besides Tunnels and Trolls and their solo adventures was their city building run. They also had a short-lived pulp action horror game called Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes. They're, of course, well known for the Grimtooth Traps series. That's probably what most people will know of them for, if you've been around long enough. And the city books. The city books were also something they really were well known about. Obviously, Tunnels and Trolls has a huge fan base. If you are even ankle deep in the actual history of the hobby, you are aware of them. They're right up neck and neck with all the other early things. So anyways, this company bought them, and they bought the entire line of backlog of product. So, they will continue to be making new Tunnels and Trolls stuff under whatever new rules they're going to use. And then, of course, they'll be re-releasing all the older stuff. Do we have a list of the classics? Yes, we do. So obviously, Tunnels and Trolls, Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes, Buffalo Castle is one they're really favorite of. The City Books is one they're really famous for. The Grimtooth Traps, of course, is what they're really famous for. Probably the most well-known is the Grimtooth Traps, I would say. Dungeon of the Bear is another one you probably know of if you've meandered about the gaming history world. But yeah, I would say probably the most well-known of the stuff that they came out with, probably Grimtooth Traps, then maybe the Tunnels and Trolls itself, then maybe Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes. But yeah. So congratulations, they have found a new home. Renegade Press is going to be producing them. Rebellion Press is going to be doing them stuff in the future. So yeah, it's nice to see another old school game get an injection of new life here in the post OGL explosion 2023. Where will it end up a year, 2 years, 3 years from now? Is it something that's going to revolutionize the industry that we're still going to be talking about in 3 years? Or is this going to be something like, for those of us who are nostalgia, kind of remember it? I think most people would be excited to see the Grimtooth Traps books come back, maybe. I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. It's just nice to see that, there's a little love out there for a third-party legacy game like Tunnels and Trolls. We will have more news of this as the story progresses, but there we go. Got to get a little good news out there before we start our daily dose of Wizards of the Coast stupid and whatever else is terrorizing the interweb this morning. Tunnels and Trolls, back. Thank you from Rebellion for picking them up. If you want to hear more stories like this, let me know. If you never want to hear me talk about this ever again, let me know. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and support the OG GM Adventures by buying my merch.